So we get, I mean, it's actually a privilege to set the ball rolling on a very eventful day. So good morning, everyone. Like Dr. Alok mentioned, the topic that we have chosen, my fellow panelists and I have chosen, is Smart Brand Sustainable World. Now, sustainability has actually moved from CSR reports to boardroom strategy, right? The key question that brands are trying to answer today is not how do we look sustainable, but how do we build sustainable practices? And the reason for that is this is not anymore about compliance, it's more about competition, it's about a competitive edge. And I truly believe that the brands who will dictate the next decade would be the ones who are able to align growth, governance, and genuine impact, and back it with data. In today's panel, my fellow panelists and I will try to move beyond jargon. That's what we've discussed, and explore what it really takes for smart brands to be sustainable in a world that demands sustainability. So that's the context. I think without further ado, let's get started. The first sort of provocation or question that I have is, from promise to practice, like how can brands move beyond sustainability claims and ensure real measurable impact across the value chain? So that's the first topic that we'll tackle. And I'd like to invite Kiran to shed light on what you see from an infrastructure industry standpoint.
Thank you, Avik, and good morning to all. I belong to Tata Realty, which is the real estate arm of the Tata Group, and I will bring in some insights from the real estate sector. But overall, I think as brands, we need to ensure that we're doing three things: embedding sustainability in our everyday practices, measuring it, because it's extremely important to measure what you're doing, see where you've reached, and then set long-term goals. And lastly, to extend it. Create short-term goals and then see how you can bring in more impact after measuring where you've reached. So these are the three things that I think as brands we need to focus on instead of just talking about sustainability. In real estate, it is extremely crucial for us to be brand conscious, Avik, in terms of ensuring that emissions not only are limited from construction practices but also embodied carbon. It's very important to also, because steel, for example, and cement, for example, are going to be 7 to 8% of the carbon that is going to be released in construction by 2050. So by 2050, if you're talking about steel and such materials leading to a lot of impact on the environment, how do you kind of reduce that? Because these are materials that are used even before people start living in it. So while we're talking about saving electricity through solar panels or harvesting water or STPs, etc., it's also important for us to control that. So that's very important for us as a brand. We as Tata Realty really believe in it, so we ensure that we have practices that are, catered to by also looking at standards like LEED, IGBC, so that we know that green buildings are not just called green, but are actually green in terms of not only material, but for the people living there as well. Yes, so I think that is how things need to change from just calling ourselves sustainable to moving to actually being sustainable. One of our projects in Chennai, which is Ramanujam IT Park, is actually a net carbon zero building. So real estate has now started moving towards focusing on being conscious. Customers have started understanding that, okay, it's important for me to also live in a sustainable building. Sustainability has also started, coming in conversations with investors. It's actually building the value of the assets that you're pitching. So overall, I think as brands, we are moving towards not just talking about green, but being green.
That's wonderful. I mean, I think you said the ball rolling very nicely. The question that comes to my mind, though, and if you could just elucidate that, is does this then increase the cost of the projects, and are consumers ready to sort of table?
It
from that?
definitely does. It does increase cost because you're talking about installing solar panels, you're talking about building systems that are, rainwater harvesting, STP. It involves a lot of cost. But yes, today customers are becoming more conscious about that and are ready to pay extra for a green building. This is especially valid in commercial buildings as compared to residential. Customers are still moving towards that space in the commercial sector, but in the residential sector. But commercial buildings, like I said, if you talk about brands like Google, if you talk about large brands like Microsoft, we have a lot of people, we build commercial buildings and put them out on lease. So we know investors are actually talking about it. Brands are actually talking about how carbon neutral your building is now. So that's extremely crucial. Now, yes, and to answer your question, everybody is aware of it. More in commercial than in residential now, but we're trying to make customers aware of it in residential as well.
Sure, that's a good start, I think. Janini, would you like to come in here with your diverse experience across industries? How do you see that, and particularly that challenge around, convincing customers, and how can brands then continue to build those green practices?
Yeah. So contrary to what she was telling, can you hear me? Yeah. Contrary to what Kiran was saying about cost being accepted in the real estate, I have come across categories, experience in categories such as FMCG, auto, consumer durables, etc., where sustainability actually poses a lot more challenge for the brand when they start piling up on the cost, right? Primarily because if you don't re-engineer the entire system design, which is the entire value chain, the cost ends up becoming a layer, a green premium that the consumer is unwilling to pay, especially if it's a monthly purchase category. Let me take the example of ITC Classmate, where I was heading the marketing for the stationery business. Over there, ITC did a very interesting thing. The backward integration of paper, which is the quality paper that Classmate has, is forest safe. And what we mean by forest safe is there is no tree which is cut down to make the Classmate notebook. Instead, the plantations have been grown for ages, even before Classmate was launched, 10 years before that. And it was only those paper which was planted by ITC that was actually used inside a Classmate notebook. Because of that, we could have charged a green premium to the consumer, but we didn't. Classmate notebook is probably just 5% more premium, or in some cases 15% more premium, but not because of the greenness. It was primarily because of the quality of the paper, the consistency of whiteness, brightness, all the other fun elements that was there, the trivia and things like that, and not because of the greenness. If we had actually translated it into a green premium, Classmate would not have become the #1 brand. So in some categories, contrary to say a real estate or some of the higher value discretionary items, you cannot pass on the green tax to the consumer. You'll have to re-engineer the entire value chain such that green becomes affordable and green is not premium. So that's my one viewpoint from few industries that I've worked in. But then there are other challenges as well, right? It's not just the cost. It's about the scale. If you continue to remain niche because you're charging a higher price, or because you are sourcing from places where you will not have a consistent demand, then you won't be able to meet the same quality. And when you don't meet a consistent quality, you can't scale. An example of a brand is Fab India. I'm sure everyone's heard of it. Very well-respected brand, a great vision where they say that every apparel has to be artisan sourced, it has to be natural, tie and dye. But because of that vision, they were continuing to remain niche because they had to charge a premium. They could not scale. And while they continue to remain a very well-respected premium brand, they are not as niche as many of the other apparel brands who have not taken up this vision. So that's a big challenge for some of these ethical brands. Another brand, for example, is Body Shop. Even they suffered. They are cruelty-free. They speak about completely no animal testing and therefore fair trade, etc. Unfortunately, when there was an animal testing ban for all beauty companies, everybody had to stop their animal testing and therefore everybody became ethical, right? So Body Shop lost its differentiation. It couldn't charge a premium anymore because of its ethical claim. And they also got themselves sold to L'Oreal. So it was like they were claiming ethics all this while, and then they were sold to an MNC, which kind of alienated all their loyal customers. And that itself led to them becoming bankrupt. So it's very, very difficult that, in spite of being ethical, in spite of having your heart at the right place, I would say, you would need to be business conscious. You would need to redesign your entire system. You need to have differentiation, which is not just sustainability, but something more than that, which HUL has done really well. They don't claim sustainability for their products. They claim what they need to claim, what the consumer really wants. However, they're completely sustainable, and that they show through impact, that they show through their back end. And therefore, this over-claiming always leads to a backlash, a reputational crisis, is what I've observed when I've studied brands across and worked across brands as well.
Yeah, I think great examples across the different sort of industries, and you're absolutely right. I think claiming it started actually with that. A lot of brands started to sort of join the bandwagon and started claiming, and many of them got found out. Few have been able to sustain it. So great points there. If now coming to the sort of the next topic, given that what Janani mentioned, and my next, I'll talk to Rupa now, technology as an enabler, how do you see that? And in what ways can, digital tools like AI, data analytics, smart infrastructure, could these help brands balance growth and sustainability, given exactly what you mentioned, which is you have to re-engineer the value chain, and can technology then help in some way in doing that faster? And what's your experience from your industry?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Sorry for my cold. I might not be able to talk properly, but anyways. I think technology plays a very important role in sustainability. I think that's no compromise, no question. And why I say is that precision, okay, is equivalent to reducing in wastage, right? And how can you get precision? You get precision with technology tools and AI-driven tools, right? Second thing is that predictability. What is predictability? The digital AI, digital twins, right? You predict what you want to, so there is a less of wastage. I am coming from an industry which is we enable the manufacturers with software and help in precision metrology. Basically what it is that it's a measurement company, right? We help manufacturers to go and do precision, predictable and stimulating activities with our software, which enables in reduction of wastage, cost, okay, and increasing the quality. Quality is very important, right? And the company's name is Hexagon, and I head the marketing for the APK region. This is very unique proposition from our company perspective. Sustainability is just not a word. It is in the everyday life, right? And in fact, I was talking to my peers out here and in the room there, and they were saying, it's not green. Let's not, as a brand ambassador, let's not make it as a green, sustainable. And it actually hit me out there at the right spot by saying, yeah, it's not green. It is about a thought. It's a way of life which every industry, every person should respect. As we talk about AI, as we talk about digital twinning, it's very, very important that we incorporate that in our day-to-day work. Now, in Hexagon, what we do is that, just to give you a background of the company, where what we are doing a phenomenal job is that when you go into a manufacturing unit, right, you start at the shop floor, you start actually looking at, okay, this is going to go on a production. Just imagine if the specifications have gone a little haywire, the whole batch goes waste, right? And that is something which can be curtailed by a proper simulation process. We have softwares which enable that. AI, for that matter, data analysis. Data is very core in this. Once you do a mistake, don't repeat it again. So go visit your history, and that is something which AI can help us out in doing that. Digital twinning is basically simulation. So for example, if you see the Boeings of the world and all that stuff, the aeroplanes, Red Bull is where we support. The torques, the shape of the car, like the Formula 1, we measure it. and ensure that that precision, we believe in micron of a change may affect the whole process line, and that will increase the wastage and the durability of the whole product. So to your point, yes, technology is definitely the number one enabler in given life out here, and as brand ambassadors and the brand managers here, we need to respect that, and in our communication we need to come out with a reality and be original. We just don't use the word sustainable here and there. We really believe in the brand, and that's when there'll be an impact.
You mentioned a few industries. Could you just elaborate a little more to say which industries do you work with? Because this is interesting, and you mentioned manufacturing. That can be like a
Yes.
very wide spectrum.
So, see, manufacturing is, we support each and every industry in manufacturing. Okay, anything which is manufactured, our software, our products help. From a hardware, which is basically measuring all the aero parts and automobiles, defense parts, to electronic parts, to a food processing part, right? So it's a very wide range of products we support, and our whole thing is that precision is a key thing, and second thing is that you need to have a conscious effort to help in this quality journey. If quality is managed properly, I think you are indirectly and helping the sustainable cause. And of course, our company is very, very particular about the net zero of 2025 and the whole activity, but that is something which has been part of the DNA. It has to be part of the DNA. It should not be another marketing jargon. Sorry, being a marketing person, it should not be written out there. So we actually are guilty of doing a lot of times that positioning. So we have to be conscious as brand ambassadors.
Thank you for the build-up. Moving to Maithili, you work with Amadeus, right? And so, from a manufacturing to travel and you know, from a global governance perspective, and if you could just layer it with maybe how do you communicate that aspect of it? You know, if you were telling me that there's a lot of work that you do with technology to aid sustainability. One is how do you do that, and second is how do you sort of communicate that, and do you communicate as a company and a brand?
Thank you, Avik. I want to make one point before I get to respond to you. We've heard various perspectives, and we all want to do good when we speak about sustainability, but I think the key is to remember that we're in a business, and at the end of the day, we've to find a balance between both. I do not say that sustainability should replace business perspectives, but we need to find a mid-ground. So contrary to what I heard, the industry that I work in, so I head the communications and brand for a company called Amadeus, which is the world's largest travel technology platform. It's quite a value creator, sustainability, in my industry, and it actually doesn't cost more money to build sustainable technology. So two short examples. One is that the minute all of our travel data is on cloud, it gives me the ability to actually process it to airlines and airports, who can give an input to aircrafts, how much time they need to be taxiing, so that they can reduce fuel consumption. Right? That is a simple example that I can give. That we perhaps don't get to see it, but it makes a huge difference to revenues, and thus airlines and airports are able to monetize tickets better for customers like us. The other example I can give you is, for me, actually, sustainability is becoming another line of business. And I don't look at it that way. That's not how the company approaches it. But the good thing about that is it's a necessity. It's an offering you have to make. Why do I say so? Gen Zs especially are choosing to not just live sustainably, also travel sustainably. What does that mean? It's not enough to just tell them that the flight you're taking is emitting so many, has such high carbon emissions. They are not just doing that. They want to travel more consciously. They also want to pick up an electric vehicle at their destination to get to their hotel. And they want to engage themselves in activities which actually help with regenerative tourism. So Goa is a great example, right? We're seeing that the crowds are fluctuating in Goa of late. One side of the story is that people still want to go have fun and they don't want to worry about anything. The other side of the story is that now people want to go to the quieter places, they want to clean up beaches, they want to actually invest time in rebuilding the place that, you know, they visited and maybe somebody else would have destroyed for in a one night, you know, party. That's how technology actually can become your enabler. You're not just using, and Rupa mentioned about data, you're not just using data analytics only to, let's say, report it as your sustainability practice. You're actually putting it back into your business, which is helping your customers in turn, and you're living sustainability. You're not just speaking sustainability, right? And another example I want to give of an organization is Tata Power. If you read up on Tata Power, they have not just pledged to use 70% of renewable energy to actually generate power, they are living it, right? So these are examples of organizations that may not go out there and make a big bang about what they're doing in sustainability, but they're living it, and that makes a big bang too.
Thank you. I think no follow-up questions, honestly, because I think pretty clear and made some very pertinent points. It was very interesting to hear, though, how, you know, behind the scenes, sometimes the data that you are churning makes such a big difference, and honestly, never realized that Amadeus does that as well. So that was a learning for me personally. You mentioned Gen Z, and I think that takes us to the next question, and I'll pull in Anindo here. Given your experience working with different brands, how do you see, one, you know, this new generation of consumers, are they truly, you know, practicing what we, you know, hear that they believe in? Is that true? And second is, you know, with increasing scrutiny around greenwashing, how can brands build transparency and you know, credibility while balancing growth, which is exactly what, you know, Maithili mentioned, right? And rightly so. So how do you bring that balance, and what are brands doing about it?
So I think it's a very high. This is an India, and I think we are both minority and majority. Only 2 men in the group of women, and also majority because 3 Bengalis there in that group. So I think before moving into answering these questions, I think we have to do a bit of recap. Okay, there is a strong behavioral nudges that we have to look for sustainability, and I completely agree with what Janani was saying. If you see, there is something called the value action gap. Okay, so 85% of the customers will say they love climate, but they end up buying the conventional product because it is available at a lesser cost. Okay, so I used to work on an organic brand business, so we are a business consultant, and we are doing some research, and we asked one uncle in Borivali, and saying, okay, I'm already 75-year-old, I buy a pack of tur dal for 100 rupees. You are asking for an organic brand 200 rupees. Usko kha ke kya main amar ban jaunga kya? Like, very genuine question. So how do you tackle that value action gap? The second point is that price hindrance. 28% there is a premium on sustainable product. See, you cannot always justify whether it's a small ticket or a large ticket item. 28% is pretty big. It came down from 39%. Third is what we call the psychological barrier called moral licensing. It's a very interesting topic. You take a cycle to office because you follow sustainability, but you buy fast fashion because you are saying, I'm doing one thing good, so I can leave that goodness to something not so good. Okay, the fourth important thing is a system in place. Just enter any retail shop, see sustainable products and conventional products, how they are stacked in the planogram. Immediately you will figure out, once you start moving from the traditional products, you know this rack is a costly rack, right? Your perception started changing. Okay, so very systematic way things have been coded in behavior. Okay, so if we want to win customers in that way, the first and foremost thing I think is to get transparency in place. Whether it's, so if you take the example of Southwest Airlines, when they wanted to increase their fare by 30%, they went out and said, we are increasing the fare because this kind of services can be only rendered with this kind of fare. And people are pretty happy because they understood that I'm paying XYZ for the service I'm getting ABC. So very transparency. Transparency cannot be fine prints. It has to be radical, right? And transparency being radical is today leadership. It's no more a differentiation, as Janani said, it's no more a differentiation, it's a base value for leadership. The second most important point, I think, in the consumer life cycle is that to understand how the purchase process happens. Earlier, the purchase process was typically 6 to 7 steps. Today has moved to 14 to 15 steps. In every step, there is a filtration happening. Right? For example, if you are going to buy even on a quick commerce, you look for a filtration. And what this filtration means? Are people looking for sustainable as filtration or looking for price low to high as a filtration? Or rating low to high as a filtration? So how do you bypass those consumer behavior? Right? The third most important thing, whether Gen Zs, oldies like us, we value today, I think, upfront rather than a very curated story. The great example is the Indigo one, right? People don't need a curated story, they need honesty. Okay, and this is a paradox, right? Honesty needs to be messy, right? If it is messy, people believe that you are honest. If it is very curated, people think that you are doing something hiding. And in the process, if you see some of the brands today, they take honesty to PR level. Very curated answer on LinkedIn, rather than saying, sorry, it's like you couldn't understand my apologies, that's why you're an idiot. I have done my bit. People don't take it. People take it on the blunt face, right? So I think these are the processes, behavior, led to, I think, systems and processes within the system that says, okay, let's go out in the market if we are 80% directional rather than 100% perfection.
Yeah, I mean, valid points there. I mean, one thing that I remembered is there was suddenly a trend started where companies started saying, I'm sorry, but not sorry, etc. So, and everybody joined that. I mean, correct. So those are examples of, I guess, too curated and just wanting to be seen as honest. Yeah, Shonel, your turn. I think you're in that way the last speaker. But what do you see? I mean, you've been in this journey for a long time with your company, and you've consulted many brands. What's your take more from a digital standpoint? Like, how do you see digital transparency coming?
Thank you so much. So I think categorically the shift is coming from a brand story to making it more real, more transparent. And I think from a B2C, so there are two aspects to it. I'll talk about a B2B perspective, which is from the real estate standpoint, where a lot of green aspects or sustainability is coming into the ruling and the legal aspect of it. That there is a certain kind of bare minimum that every new construction has to follow. So there's no option. So since there's no option, it has to be integrated. And because it has to be integrated, there's going to be a behavioral change anyway. So one way is to have a behavioral change is to make it a law. Second part to this is B2C perspective, where there are two specific industries. One is FMCG and one is fashion. These are two areas where consumers are able to talk about sustainability more actively. If I talk about FMCG, for example, we've seen a lot of food farmer videos come up across the board. He talked about a lot of brands not being clean, not being good for people, not being good for their audiences, eventually to build up as a creator to come up with his own brand. When that particular brand started getting questioned, that y'all don't follow the same rules that other people do, he took them through actual live recorded space. Everyone who questioned was taken through their entire floor with each and every section recorded, and those who are naysayers actually started believing the brand more. The cost definitely is higher compared to what you would have in a normal whey protein, etc. But it instilled a certain kind of trust that what's going into my body is a clean product. Secondly, coming to fashion and fast fashion, and people have been talking about we are conscious, which like H&M did a conscious series, and they faced a backlash because most of their products are fast fashion focused. Like you rightly mentioned, right? We look at what is it that, how much of green or sustainability can we accommodate into our lives? And to what level does that transparency affect me in general? Today I'm talking about sustainable product. Like for example, what I'm wearing today, part of it is sustainable. Comes from a brand which uses sustainable materials. decides to kind of use as much, as little, most sustainability either could be from a perspective of how long can a product last, or how much can I kind of reuse it? How many times can I reuse the product before it really goes into that sand pit or the landfill that we'd end up and it at? So I feel transparency, and it also comes to the brands. This has also resulted in a lot of brands. Like as a brand custodian, the first shock that comes to me is now to move away from storytelling to reality in that sense, because we've been trying to curate the brand for so long now that it's become like a muscle memory for us, that we are not able to accept, and that's a filter that changes with the newer generation that comes into play. If you see a lot of newer brands, they are talking about being honest, being clean, being clear. Yes, we know our faults, we own our faults, and that's how we're going to work towards it. And that's the brands are adapting to the founder's behavior and nature, because that's the attitude that new founders are coming up with. Unabashedly real, very, very strong in terms of their ownership. Yes, we are wrong, but we are learning. If you find us wrong, please tell us. We are happy to incorporate that feedback. So that also makes consumers a part of that entire brand journey. And that's how the loyalty will change, in my opinion. Because right now we're looking at brand loyalty as being very fickle.
Yeah.
If we're able to get some stake out of the brands in different format, be a part of that correction, I think that's where the brand loyalty also will grow eventually.
Sure. Just a couple of thoughts here. One, are consumers getting confused? Because, there was a salt that I always use, then one salt comes and says, hey, that's not correct. I always had some honey, somebody saying, no, that honey is adulterated or whatever. Every category has seen that, right? I mean, you go to construction, you go to hotels, you anywhere, right? So, and then some of them actually get found out as well, right? And even you gave a great example of the food farmer, but there are other content creators who would eventually side with somebody. The body shop example that we just heard. So who does a consumer believe? Like, are consumers getting confused because of all this? And actually anybody can answer this. I mean, it's not.
In my opinion, it's I think giving a lot more clarity, because then consumers also doing their own research. At the end of the day, what are the products available? If there's a complete clear listing out there, if the data is not buried in very crazy jargons, if the data is easily consumable, that's where they go at. Today, if I'm scanning a product, and if we see that adapted across the countries, there are products which are proper labeling that this is what's going into my product. This has got more sugar, this is clean, this is organic.
Sure.
And organic is being used not as a marketing jargon. I feel even if it is, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's letting the consumer make a conscious choice that probably what I'm having is a cleaner option. And it's a try and tested model.
But then,
So
to what extent can you do that? You're going into, let's say, a DMart and you're buying 45 things. Would you be considering each and every one, look at the label, you'll be pushed by somebody in the aisle. You can't stand. So,
Avik, I will
so
give you
practical
a
even.
small
So,
example on it, what she is saying. See, consumers are very smart, right? They walk between, they are binary, 1 or 0. Hardly they will fall into the trap of gray. So for example, I will just give an example of ice cream brand, okay? They are on quick commerce. You do quick commerce ice cream search, you will find 252 SKUs. Okay, out of that, 174 SKUs are from the brands that we know, like Amul, Mother Dairy, and all those things, which contributes 70% of the SKUs. Okay, the other 30% contributes to the new age brand, Go Zero, and all those Noto. For a consumer, 174 you have the choice, and then you have the choice of 80. So it's a very clear choice. You want to go for that 174, where you have 27 SKUs of Amul, or you have to go bottom of the tail to figure out 1 or 2 products of the Go Zero. So this, I think consumers in their mind are very clear. Okay. Sometimes, sorry to say that, we brands mix up things. Consumers have compartmentalized. They know how much to spend. If it's a floor cleaner, they know how much to spend. But if it's something to do with the baby diaper for the kid, they know how much to spend.
Okay, if I could just come in and make a point here. When you were speaking about organic food, if all of us notice, We order organic food, organically grown chana, for example. It comes in plastic packaging. Right? Now, the truth is that I think you're very right that consumers are extremely intelligent, and you are absolutely right. Consumers want the reality. They appreciate brands which tell you the truth. Yes, this percent of our business or our focus is towards being sustainable, but we also need to monetize, or we also need to keep business going. Thus, packaging is more effective in this form, for example. I'll give you two very short examples, just one line each. There is a brand called Bare Necessities, right? Now, look at the naming. Bare Necessities stands for many things. They are a makeup brand, but at the same time, they are conveying that not just are we building things in a bare necessity manner, makeup is also a bare necessity for you. So they are driving their business growth and at the same time spreading the message of sustainability. Their entire packaging comes in bamboo or jute bags, jute strings. They are very conscious that the packaging also reflects what the brand stands for. So I think consumers want to hear less noise about sustainability and see more action. And when it's visible, they buy into it more.
Also, one more reason.
I want to answer this question slightly from a different angle, Avik. I'll take the consumer side here, right? I am a mother of a 21-month-old baby, right? And I do not want to give him any of the cereals which traditionally have a lot of sugar. A number of brands have recently gotten into flack that in India, they add a lot more sugar in the cereal, baby food that they give. I won't take up the brands' names, but they've gotten into flack. So I'm researching everywhere on Google, on Q-commerce, etc., to understand which brands do not give sugar to my baby, because I strongly believe that lesser than 2 years, he shouldn't be given unnecessary sugar. And I focused on one brand, which again I won't take up the name, but it's made by two mothers who felt and had the same problem that I am currently facing. So I chose the brand and I bought their ragi plus banana cereal, etc. Fortuitously, I am also consulting, I am a marketing consultant for a natural organic food startup who also has date powder and other natural sweeteners which they promote as can be added to the baby's food. When I met the founder and understood his processes, I realized that all competition, including the two mothers startup, actually for scaling up are adding maida and are adding sugar. Because ultimately, you can scale and have consistent products only if you stop being true to your original vision and start making consistency through maida. Maida is the killer, because meaning it's the saver for brands, but it's the killer for consumers, because unless it's added, you will never get the consistency that you want. And I was shocked because what I read and what I finally saw at the factory were completely different, one as a consumer and one as a marketer. So my answer is actually consumers are getting confused. As a consumer, I got confused. Now, whom do I believe, right? But that's where Revath Himansika has helped you to look at labels. Whatever said and done, you can't lie in a label. You will end up knowing in the label whether there is maida. Recently, a brand spoke up about loaded with cheese. Actually, it had only 0.1% cheese. And it got a lot of flack on LinkedIn because of the loaded with cheese. But their label was right. Their label was accurate. It said 0.1% cheese. So if I know how to read the label, then automatically the brand is doing the right thing. They're storytelling, but they're giving the right things on the label. So people like influencers, right now he's become an influencer, but Revath Himansika started with a noble thought in mind. Let me teach everyone to read labels. Don't believe everything that the brands say in a story, but believe their packaging and interpret their packaging in the right manner. I think we as consumers, right, not as marketers, but we as consumers should start seeking out these voices which teach us, which educate us and get us out of this confusion. Sometimes it's the brand who themselves do it, sometimes it's somebody else and not the brand.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was edging to tell something. I think one of the things which we are missing out in this conversation is that we are not looking at the whole demographic. We are just looking at the consumers of the modern world, right? who are. So we have to split this problem into two. One is the ones which are accessible to the whole technology, who can read labels and all that stuff, right? That is where the brand responsibility comes in, wherein we brand people have to ensure that we are right for what we are. So the brand has to stand for its trust, familiarity. Now, just example, if I am confused, yes, customers are very confused, right? And that's no two ways. Too much of information, everybody knows, and ChatGPT knows everything, right? We'll just go and ask them. But the point is here is that the brand trust is very important. For example, if I go into Blinkit or Swiggy and try to buy something, and I want to do sustainable and all, I will not think twice and go for Tata brand, right? Because it has built the story, it has built the brand, right? Now, that is where we as sustainability consumers getting confused, we need to be very careful of, right? We have to build the brand, we have to build the trust, and hence consumer starts deciding and picking up on those things. Now, with all the all the new brands coming in, that is where the trick is, right? That is where we are not being truthful to ourselves. And again, it will not be very soon that the brands will get impacted if they continue. For the quick wins, for the quick revenue build, all right, you will get impacted for a longer thing. Your brand will be impacted. So again, it's a double-edged sword, right? Consumers are not very fool. Right? I am a consumer, I will go buy once and I will never buy that brand, right? Word of mouth is a very important part of it. The word of mouth which goes in can kill a brand which you have invested for life. So that, and killing a brand with a wrong thing and getting revenue will incur you a lot of losses which will close your the company. So that is something again we have to be careful of. And the third and important part is the upcountry. Okay, the tier 2 markets. In fact, I was just coming from the tier 2 area 2 days back, and I was amused to see the consumerism, all the products are there, everything is stacked up. But if I have seen, it's not all the startup kind of products, it is the trusted products, right? So I think the whole conversation, if you're consumers are getting confused, but we as brand ambassadors need to know where we have to draw a line between quick money and long sustainable things. So that's, I think, the way I look at it.
Also, if I may, one sec. If I may.
I think we'll be
reason of the tier 2
short of
would
time,
be,
so yeah, quick.
Yeah, so the tier 2 could be a problem with distribution also. It might not
Yeah, of course.
necessarily be a trust perspective. 2 brands that I'd give quick examples of. From a confusion perspective, one is Super You. When it came up, they talked about clean and everything else. Turned out they're loaded with sugar. There's a lot of backlash that the brand has faced, and they've rolled back on all their marketing. So that's something which has come up from the audience itself. The taste was horrible, I'm sorry, but it was really bad. And everything else around it didn't really add to the healthy choice that I was making. Second part of this conversation is from the trust perspective. The whole conversation about the dairy issue that's happening. Amul and almost every single dairy brand is flagged with something, but the timing couldn't be, because if you see the narrative online, everyone's actually going against it, against that study, saying that this is a way to bring in other competition into the country. So I think it's again, confusion lies in, it's a very independent research-based feedback in that sense. And that's where I'd sort of close this, where I'd say that it depends upon your research. At the end of the day, what do you want to put in your system, your body, and what do you want to use?
Sure, at least it's moving. That's I think what I'm gathering from everybody. I think there is at least some thought going into the consumer's mind, wanting to make a conscious choice, and I think that's a good start. I'll end this with a rapid fire to make it a little more interesting. Given what all you've said, let's start with Anindo, and everybody will give a short answer. Yeah, one line. One sustainability buzzword that must disappear.
Circular, nothing loops back.
Recyclable, because it's very questionable in the sense that what extent do you recycle it?
Okay.
We stand for green. I think that is a buzzword that should move out completely. You have to embed it, like I said, and action it.
Yeah, greenwashing.
I'd say carbon offset, because the amount of carbon you emit by just living is way higher than what you're doing towards sustainability efforts.
I think it should be ethical sourcing. That should be removed and replaced by economical sourcing. Then automatically it will get adopted better.
Nice perspective, yeah.
I think the word sustainability. Without measurement, it's not sustainable. We have been misusing this word again and again. So the word sustainability needs to be added with a measurement. So that's it.
Interesting. Another one, quick one. Is sustainability currently a growth driver or still a cost center in your organization? Let's start with you this time.
It's both, right? We are in a phase wherein sustainability becomes a cost center. It takes a lot of conscious decision from the management perspective to push the whole thing. But going forward, I think it will become a growth story for us. So I think it's right now in a transition period.
Across the conglomerates I've worked in, it's been a growth driver because costs have been defrayed across the portfolio, not added to one particular product.
Interesting.
I already answered this, but it's a complete value creator in my industry.
For me, it's a balance in our industry. Like I said, in the commercial sector in real estate, it's a growth driver because it kind of increases the value of your asset. Conversations with investors are better. And in residential, people are still getting used to how sustainability is adding to their everyday lives. Why should they pay more for it? So yeah, a balance in real estate sector in my view.
For me, it's more like a bargaining chip with my clients that talk about sustainability. It'll be able to get you larger reach across the board. So, I mean, do good, be good, I guess.
So I have 2 points. The first point is that...
Only one.
Okay. So, in finance, balance sheet is a cost, but in trust or brand equity is a growth. And if in the organization, the leadership is brave, it's a growth. If the leadership is cautious, is a cost.
Good point. And by the way, I mean, as we speak, I was just reading an article where very recently the ESG component of the CEO's pay and the global leadership's pay package in the biggest multinationals of US have been slashed. So, I mean, from P&G, and I can name them because it's public information, right? The latest one was Apple. Before that, it was MasterCard, P&G, Salesforce, you name it. And there was a data that said S&P 500 companies, 2023, 54%, I think, companies had the ESG component in the CEO salary. Now it's down to 42 or something. 42.6 if I remember the number correctly. So that's alarming. Along with DEI, that's another one that's been completely gone. So yeah, I mean we are all here talking about intentions, leaderships, motivation, etc. But yeah, that's another reality that's coming in. So we'll see how that goes. I think fabulous. I must say a big thank you to all of you. We hope we lived up to not being jargonish. That's what we committed to at the beginning. And if I may just take a minute to sort of summarize what I heard, I think 3 themes that sort of I'm taking away. One, I think sustainability cannot sit in marketing. It has to be embedded in the operations. We heard it multiple times coming through. Second is technology is no longer optional. If sustainability needs to be brought in, technology needs to play a very important role. And again, we heard that from different industries and how one industry could sort of benefit from the other. And third is, I think, transparency is the new sort of brand currency. It's not about honesty, transparency, all these things we spoke about, right? Whether it's label, whether it's what you communicate, etc. I think these are sort of the 3 ones. And if I could sort of leave with one thought, I think when it comes to sustainability, brands are on a journey from being compliant to competitive to being courageous, and there's a spectrum. Some brands are on the right side, but very, very few. Most, I think Shonel was mentioning rules, or did Anando mention that? I can't remember who mentioned that, but somebody mentioned rules need to be set up. So that's being compliant, but I don't think those brands are not necessarily smart brands because they're just complying. I think the ones who are getting smarter are getting to competitive and courageous, that end of the spectrum. And they just don't communicate sustainability, they operationalize it. I think I'll leave with that. Thank you.